Who reigns as the true king of the mega herbivores? The massive mammoth or the enormous elephant? Well, that's what we want to look at today, as we explore everything you've wanted to know about the similarities and differences between these old cousins. So, without further ado, let's talk about it. Taxonomy and classification. Mammoth refers to any one of the several species in the Mammuthus genus. Mammuthus falls under the Elephantidae family, along with present-day elephants and other extinct elephantids. Notable elephantids from the past include Stegoloxodon, Primalephus, Selenotherium, and Paleoloxodon. The word mammoth comes from a native Siberian term for earth horn. The oldest fossils and even frozen carcasses were found in Siberia in the 17th century, and local lore suggests natives once lived alongside them. The animals were revered here as water spirits. Scottish explorer John Bell was among the earliest Westerners to document evidence of mammoths during a trip to Siberia in 1722. After purchasing a tusk from the locals, Bell showed it to Sir Hans Sloane, a major contributor to the British Museum, the Natural History Museum in London, and the British Library. Sir Hans soon confirmed that Bell had found a legitimate elephantid tooth. More than 25,000 mammoth fossils and remains have been found throughout Eurasia, North America, and Africa ever since. Further evidence of mammoths also includes countless cave paintings of them all around the world. There were at least 10 mammoth species. The woolly mammoth, Mammuthus primigenius, is the most famous thanks to its depiction in major media like the Ice Age film franchise. Modern-day African elephants, Loxodonta africana and Loxodonta cyclotis, and Asian elephants, Elephas maximus, belong to the genera Loxodonta and Elephas, not Mammuthus. Interestingly, physiological evidence like skeletal structure, trunk formation, and ear size show that Asiatic elephants are closer to mammoths than to their African counterparts. There is also a bit of confusion regarding the mammoths and mastodons, but we'll set it straight right now. Mastodons were not mammoths, nor even elephantids. Instead, they were part of a separate proboscidean family called Mammutidae. Proboscidean refers to the Proboscidea order all of these animals fall under. Elephantidae is the only living family of the order today, with all other families long extinct. Proboscidea comes from the ancient Greek word proboscis, which means elephant's trunk. Mammoth era. The Proboscidea order likely dates back at least 55 million years to the late Paleocene. This means proboscideans emerged around 10 million years after the extinction of the dinosaurs. The first proboscideans lived along the African coast off the Tethys Ocean, which is now the Mediterranean Sea and the Indian Ocean. These early creatures were Erytherium and Phosphotherium, and evidence suggests they may have been semi-aquatic. Moeritherium, Pneumodotherium, and Barytherium showed up in Africa a bit later, during the Eocene. All three had 4 legs, but their nasal cavities and forearm bones show that they were still semi-aquatic. When tectonic plate movement brought the African and Eurasian continents together via the Arabian land bridge during the Miocene, proboscideans began moving north into Eurasia. The period lasted from 23 to about 5 million years ago. Shortly after, the Bering Land Bridge connecting Siberia and North America facilitated migration to the New World. This was when the Mammutids emerged and began ruling. The oldest mammoth species, Mammuthus subplanifrons, lived in the Miocene between 6.2 to 5.3 million years ago. It lived in East and Southern Africa. Subplanifrons may have coincided with Mammuthus africanavus, another notable African species from 5 to 2.58 million years ago. Mammuthus rumanus is the oldest Eurasian mammoth we know of, and it eventually spawned Meridionalis, aka the southern mammoth. Then, about 1.7 million years ago, Meridionalis evolved into Trogontheriae, the Central and East Asian steppe mammoth. Some steppe mammoths later crossed the Bering Land Bridge and led to Columbi, the Columbian mammoth. The steppe mammoths left in Siberia later shrank and evolved into Primigenius, the woolly mammoth. These woolly mammoths also crossed the land bridge and began their own Great American adventure. Mammoths on the 3 continents shared ecosystems with other great herbivores, legions of deadly predators, and later, man. As you probably know, the last of those 3 proved their undoing. Mammoths were hunted for their meat, furs, fats, tusks, bones, and glory. Faced with spears, arrows, flaming torches, poison, snares, and traps, mammoths put up a valiant but futile resistance to cunning and opposable thumbs. Mammoths actually lived until as recently as 3,700 to 4,000 years ago, at least according to mammoth bones discovered on Russia's Wrangel Island. Meanwhile, back in Africa, some terrestrial proboscideans descended from those that didn't move to Eurasia had evolved into the Gomphotheres family. Around 10 million years ago, this family diverged and spun off into a group that would later spawn modern African elephants of the Loxodonta genus. These animals' emergence is attributed to the cooling of global temperatures at the end of the Miocene. Mammoths' proportions. Mammoth species varied greatly, including in size and general appearance. Some grew larger than others, some were complete fuzzballs, while others were as nude as modern elephants. Let's talk about size relative to the elephants, the world's largest terrestrial animals today. The African bush elephant, Loxodonta africana, is the biggest species. Females are between 7.2 and 8.5 feet tall at the shoulder and weigh between 4,750 and 7,125 pounds. Males are significantly bigger, with shoulder heights between 10 and 13 feet, as well as weight ranges of 10,000 and 13,400 pounds. The heaviest elephant ever weighed 22,900 pounds and stood 13 feet tall. The tallest ever was 13.8 feet at the shoulder, with a weight of 18,000 pounds. These ranges mean the African bush elephant is more or less in line with the woolly mammoth in size. Primigenius reached a max height of 11 feet and a max weight of 13,200 pounds, 6,000 kilograms. Woolly mammoths may have got much bigger, but fossil evidence is still limited. However, the fossils of the southern steppe and Columbian mammoths did prove one thing. The biggest mammoths were much bigger than any elephant. Bull southern and steppe mammoths typically reached 13 feet at the shoulder and weighed about 24,250 pounds. Cows were smaller, but still much bigger than female bush elephants. Some individuals likely grew beyond these numbers. Columbian mammoths were also bigger than elephants, with bulls that reached about 12 feet in height and 20,950 pounds in weight. The biggest tusk on record belonged to a Columbian mammoth too. The tusk is 16 feet long. This means that 5-meter tusks were probably not uncommon. The longest woolly mammoth tusk documented is 13.1 feet long. In comparison, the longest African elephant tusk ever was 11.4 feet long. That said, despite being known for great size and presence, not all mammoths were giants. Some species, like Mammuthus creticus or Cretan dwarf mammoth, were rather tiny things. Creticus evolved as a result of insular dwarfism. Trapped on an island, the mammoth developed a smaller body to lower caloric needs. The dwarf was 3.3 feet tall and weighed about 400 pounds. Some people are bigger than that. Mammoth vs. Elephant. Who would win? So how do they stack up? Who is the dominant elephantid? Let's start by looking at how they differ and resemble each other. Posture is among the most noticeable things, especially when compared with African elephants. Mammoths have a gradually sloping back, with the front legs being longer than the hind legs. Asian elephants are similar to mammoths in this way. They too have sloped backs and uneven legs. African elephants, in contrast, have concave backs. The front and hind legs are noticeably more or less equal in length, making them look more balanced. Mammoth heads feature more pronounced and bulbous domes than those of African elephants, which slope gradually. Again, Asian elephants resemble extinct cousins here. Their heads are the definition of bulbous. African elephants have much bigger ears than mammoths and their Asian cousins. For mammoths, small ears were a defense against the biting cold. In contrast, big ears helped the African elephant cool off in the blazing heat. Many mammoth species had fur, while elephants do not. Woolly mammoths even had double coats to shield them from the sub-zero chill. There are dental differences as well. Woolly mammoths, like Asian elephants, had flat molars, indicating that they were predominantly grazers. African elephants, on the other hand, have pointed, diamond-shaped molars for slicing and dicing fruit and leaves. Next is distribution and range. Thanks to land bridges connecting the old and new worlds, mammoths occupied and thrived in most of the world's major continents. Modern elephants only live in the old world. One thing that mammoths and African elephants have in common is the finger-like extensions on their trunks. They both have two, while Asian elephants only have one. So who would win? Well, if it was a one-off champion-for-champion clash, we'd have to give the contest to the mammoths. Not only did the biggest mammoths significantly outweigh the biggest elephants, but their longer trunks and tusks would give them a serious reach advantage. Even female mammoths could grow massive tusks. However, in reality, elephants have won because they're still around while all the mammoths are gone. Call it overhunting or call it climate change, but the old mammoth kings are all long dead. Elephants have been embroiled in their own struggle against humans and habitat loss, but they have at least benefited from serious conservation efforts. Mammoths were unlucky to live in a time when conservation was not yet even a word. That's all we have time for today, folks. Thanks a bunch for watching, and we hope you'll take the time to like, share, and comment on the video. Also, subscribe to the channel and ding the bell so you never miss more awesome animal content. Until next time, bye-bye.